Attica Prison Uprising, 1971. The Attica Prison Uprising occurred in September 1971 at Attica Correctional Facility in New York, involving more than 1,200 inmates who seized control of large parts of the prison and took 42 correctional officers and civilian employees hostage after years of complaints about overcrowding, brutal treatment, racial discrimination, inadequate medical care, and poor living conditions were ignored by prison authorities and the state government. The riot escalated into a 4-day standoff with negotiations broadcast nationally, during which inmates demanded political rights, improved conditions, and amnesty. But on September 13th, New York State Police and correctional officers retook the prison by force, firing thousands of rounds into the yard. The assault resulted in 43 deaths, including 33 inmates and 10 hostages, all killed by law enforcement gunfire, making it the deadliest prison uprising in U.S. history. Initial official claims falsely blamed inmates for hostage deaths, but later investigations exposed systemic misconduct, torture of prisoners, and decades-long cover-ups, turning Attica into a symbol of state violence and prison reform failures. Carandiru Prison Massacre, 1992. The Carandiru prison riot took place in October 1992 at the Carandiru Penitentiary in Sao Paulo, Brazil, one of the largest prisons in the world, when a fight between inmates escalated into a full-scale riot in an overcrowded cell block holding more than 2,000 prisoners under inhumane conditions. Brazilian military police were ordered to intervene and stormed the facility with firearms after negotiations failed, opening fire indiscriminately inside the prison. The operation resulted in the deaths of 111 inmates, most shot at close range, many while hiding or surrendering, with no police fatalities. Survivors reported executions, torture, and the removal of bodies to conceal evidence. Although officers were initially convicted years later, most convictions were eventually overturned, and no one served significant prison time, cementing the massacre as one of the most notorious examples of state violence inside a prison, and contributing to the rise of organized prison gangs in Brazil. Andersonville Prison Riot and Collapse, 1864. The Andersonville prison collapse occurred during the American Civil War at Camp Sumter in Georgia, where Union prisoners of war were held in extreme overcrowding, starvation, and disease due to Confederate supply shortages and mismanagement. By mid-1864, internal violence erupted among prisoners themselves as organized gangs preyed on weaker inmates, leading to internal riots and vigilante justice within the camp. Although not a single explosive riot, the ongoing violence and complete breakdown of order resulted in the deaths of approximately 13,000 prisoners out of 45,000 held there. Camp Commander Henry Wirtz was later tried and executed for war crimes, making Andersonville one of the earliest and most infamous examples of catastrophic prison failure and mass death, driven by neglect, scarcity, and unchecked brutality. Kingston Penitentiary Riot, 1971. The Kingston Penitentiary Riot occurred in April 1971 in Ontario, Canada, when inmates seized control of the maximum security prison after mounting frustration over harsh discipline, lack of rehabilitation programs, and deteriorating living conditions. Prisoners took guards hostage, destroyed large sections of the facility, and held the prison for 4 days while negotiations unfolded. The riot ended after hostages were released, but during the aftermath, correctional officers violently beat and abused inmates during forced strip searches, actions later exposed through investigations. No inmates were killed during the riot itself, but the event led to sweeping inquiries that revealed systemic abuse and prompted major reforms in the Canadian prison system, making Kingston one of the most significant prison uprisings in Canadian history. Lucasville Prison Riot, 1993. The Lucasville prison riot erupted in April 1993 at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility when inmates protested mandatory tuberculosis testing procedures they believed violated religious beliefs, combined with long-standing grievances about overcrowding, racism, and brutality. The riot quickly escalated into an 11-day standoff during which prisoners controlled the facility, executed 5 fellow inmates accused of being informants, and held staff hostage. Negotiations eventually ended the uprising peacefully, but the aftermath included death sentences for several inmates, including members of rival prison gangs who temporarily united during the riot. The event exposed deep flaws in prison management and remains one of the longest and most complex prison sieges in U.S. history. Topaz Prison Riot, 2010. The Topaz Prison Riot occurred in January 2010 in La Paz, Bolivia, inside San Pedro Prison's maximum security wing, known as Topaz, where inmates lived with weapons, drugs, and minimal state control due to systemic corruption and self-governance. A violent power struggle between rival inmate groups escalated into armed combat using knives, firearms, and explosives, leading to the deaths of at least 5 inmates and serious injuries to many others. Authorities were initially unable to intervene due to the prison's internal control structure, and the riot highlighted the extreme level of inmate autonomy, corruption, and lack of state oversight in Bolivia's prison system. Camp Buca Prison Riot, 2007. The Camp Buca Prison Riot occurred in 2007 at a US-run detention facility in Iraq, holding thousands of suspected insurgents during the Iraq War. Riots broke out repeatedly due to overcrowding, poor conditions, cultural tensions, and resentment toward US military guards. In one major incident, detainees attacked guards with improvised weapons, set fires, and attempted mass escapes. Although fatalities were limited compared to historical prison riots, Camp Buca became infamous for serving as a radicalization hub where future leaders of extremist organizations, including senior Islamic State figures, networked and organized, making the prison's unrest a long-term contributor to regional instability rather than a single isolated event. San Quentin 6 Riot, 1971. The San Quentin 6 riot occurred in August 1971 at San Quentin State Prison in California, when an attempted escape by inmate George Jackson escalated into a violent uprising involving several prisoners and guards inside the adjustment center. During the chaos, Jackson obtained a firearm smuggled into the prison, and multiple guards were attacked, beaten, or stabbed while inmates attempted to seize control of sections of the facility. The incident resulted in the deaths of George Jackson, 3 correctional officers, and 2 inmate trustees, with several others seriously injured. Authorities quickly suppressed the riot, but the aftermath sparked nationwide controversy over prison security failures, radical political movements inside prisons, and the use of lethal force. The case led to lengthy trials for 6 inmates accused of participating, becoming one of the most politically charged prison riot cases in U.S. history. New Mexico State Penitentiary Riot, 1980. The New Mexico State Penitentiary Riot erupted in February 1980 in Santa Fe after years of extreme overcrowding, understaffing, inmate-on-inmate violence, and systemic abuse went unaddressed. Prisoners overwhelmed guards, seized control of the facility, and held it for 36 hours, during which rival inmate groups carried out brutal acts of torture, sexual assault, and murder against perceived enemies and informants. The riot resulted in the deaths of 33 inmates, many mutilated or burned alive, with hundreds injured, making it one of the most violent prison riots in American history. Authorities eventually regained control without using lethal force, but the aftermath exposed catastrophic management failures and led to sweeping prison reforms nationwide. Strangeways Prison Riot, 1990. The Strangeways Prison Riot began in April 1990 at HM Prison Strangeways in Manchester, England, after inmates, protesting overcrowding, poor sanitation, and abusive discipline, seized control of the prison chapel and rapidly overtook the entire facility. Prisoners barricaded guards, destroyed large sections of the prison, and occupied rooftops for 25 days, making it the longest prison riot in British history. 1 inmate died during the uprising, and damages exceeded tens of millions of pounds. The riot triggered a major public inquiry that confirmed widespread mistreatment and directly led to reforms in the UK prison system, including improved conditions and oversight.